My name is Alexis Carter. I'm 34 years old. The gala night at the luxury hotel was supposed to be a celebration of the startup journey my husband and I had built together. But under the blinding lights in front of hundreds of VIP guests, I witnessed a scene no wife would ever dare imagine. My husband's wealthy female boss, Victoria, got down on one knee, held out a ring, and asked him amid thunderous applause, "Will you leave your poor, useless wife and marry me?" And Nathan nodded. In that moment, the entire room exploded, yet I sat there strangely calm. Have you ever been publicly betrayed by someone you loved with no one on your side? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is the beginning of the truth behind that humiliation. I first met Nathan in the hallway of Georgetown Law School. I was holding a stack of thick books, and he had walked out of negotiation class, neatly dressed, full of confidence. He smiled and asked, "Need a hand?" I looked at him and shook my head. "I'm used to it." That was the first time I realized Nathan always picked the easy parts. The smile, the handshake, the impression. I was the one used to sitting for hours in the library decoding legal clauses no one wanted to touch. We were like puzzle pieces. I handled the foundation, he took care of appearances. Love came quickly, or rather trust did. I saw in Nathan a partner who could stand on stage and voice the ideas I had shaped. He saw in me an endless source of knowledge to help him shine. Back then, I thought it was a perfect balance. After graduation, I used the inheritance from my grandmother, Elena Walker, to start our business. She was a resilient woman who once worked 3 jobs to build a small tech consulting firm back in the 80s. When she passed away, she left me not money but a handwritten note in Spanish: "Build something that matters. And never let anyone steal your credit." I folded that note and kept it in my wallet like a talisman. With that money, I created an AI software to manage and audit contracts, an efficient tool for law firms to save thousands of hours and reduce litigation risks. I named the company Carter Legal Tech, my last name. But when founding it, I agreed to list Nathan as a co-founder. I believed fairness meant sharing. I didn't know that this one compromise would become the seed of every tragedy to follow. In the beginning, I worked myself to exhaustion, 18-hour days writing code, testing algorithms. Nathan, meanwhile, was busy at networking events, meeting investors, raising champagne glasses, introducing Carter Legal Tech as our brainchild. Sometimes I'd watch him stand in a crowd, people calling him the young legal genius, and I'd feel proud. I told myself, he deserves this. Without him, who would bring our product to the world? But that belief started to waver once his family got involved. My mother-in-law, Linda, was a sharp-tongued woman living in a historic mansion in suburban Virginia. From our first meeting, she scanned me head to toe with a critical eye. "Alexis, you're smart. But women who are too successful tend to have trouble keeping their husbands." I smiled, biting my tongue. Nathan jumped in. "Mom, Alexis is the reason this company exists." Linda shrugged. "My son is the reason investors are opening their wallets. Don't forget that." I never did. Nathan's younger brother, Ryan, treated me like an ATM. Every visit, he'd make jabs like, "Hey sis, your company's doing great. Think you could help me out with a little seed money?" When I declined, he told Linda I was stingy and selfish. In those early years, I tolerated it. I believed things were still okay. Carter Legal Tech was growing fast. Revenue soared. Clients signed deals in waves. Nathan stood on stage to accept the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. I clapped from the audience. A few times, journalists asked, "Alexis, what's your role in the company?" I replied, "I support my husband." I lied. And every time I lied, I told myself it was for the good of our family. Then came Victoria Hale. She was a prominent venture capitalist from New York, born into wealth, known for aggressively acquiring startups. At our first meeting, she shook my hand briefly and glanced over me like I was another employee. Then she turned fully to Nathan. "You've got the spark. I like people who can sell dreams like they're selling million-dollar ideas." Nathan blushed like a college kid being praised. And I saw it. The flicker in his eyes that hadn't lit up for me in a long time. From then on, everything changed. Nathan started talking about Victoria constantly. Every conversation ended with, "Victoria thinks this. Victoria suggests that." He stopped asking my opinion on strategy. Stopped needing me to revise his speeches. My name began disappearing from internal documents. In meetings, staff turned to Nathan for direction, because Victoria backs him. One evening, I tried to remind him, "Nathan, do you remember why we started? To help young lawyers save time. Not to become a PR puppet for investors." He frowned and snapped, "You always think too small. Victoria's teaching me to think big, global. You wouldn't understand." That wasn't the Nathan I had loved. He had become someone else, fame-hungry, drawn to the spotlight. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. All my effort, ideas, sacrifices. Now the backdrop for Nathan and Victoria to shine. His family seized the moment to twist the knife. "Alexis, you have Nathan to thank for your success." Inside, I heard my grandmother's voice. "Never let anyone steal your credit." But I stayed silent. I believed that one day the truth would speak for itself. I never expected that day to come so fast, and so cruelly, on the night of the gala when Victoria knelt and offered a ring to my husband in front of hundreds of people. One evening, while Nathan claimed he was preparing for an important meeting at the office, a notification popped up on my synced work computer. It was a habit, I checked everything before bed. This time, a strange folder appeared in the shared inbox. It looked like a syncing mistake. I opened it, and it felt like someone had wrapped a cold hand around my heart. Emails between Nathan and Victoria. Not business strategies like I'd imagined, but cold, calculated exchanges. Stage 1. Public proposal during gala. Narrative. Alexis as broke wife, infertile, liability to company image. Stage 2. Media leak. Emphasize Carter Legal Tech's need for new leadership. I'll handle press connections. Stage 3. Formal merger agreement with Hale Ventures. Already drafted, waiting for Nathan's confirmation. Each word carved itself into my memory like a knife. Broke wife. Infertile. Those words made me tremble, not from shame but from how strategic and heartless they were. The next day I quietly followed Nathan's schedule. He told me, "I'll be late. Victoria needs help finalizing her speech." I nodded, pretending not to know. But the moment he left, I used my spare key and opened the locked drawer in his home office. Inside, I found a printed draft of the merger agreement with Hale Ventures. The Hale logo gleamed in the corner. The signature line was blank, waiting for the gala to end. What chilled me to the bone was the attached appendix. It included a drafted press plan with one line in bold: Alexis Carter to step down voluntarily due to personal health reasons, including infertility rumors. They had the whole narrative prepared, an exit story meant to erase me from the very company I built. I remembered the nights I worked until 2 or 3 in the morning while Nathan sipped whiskey with clients. I remembered my hands trembling from hours of non-stop coding, while he was celebrated as the visionary behind the new AI platform. All my effort was now being painted as dead weight, so he and Victoria could craft their perfect script. Eliminate me. Tears threatened to fall, but I held them back. My grandmother Elena once told me, "Pain only matters if you turn it into strength." So I started moving. First was the recording. I installed a small device in Nathan's office, disguised cleverly as a decorative object. I knew he often put calls with Victoria on speaker. Sure enough, within days I captured a crystal-clear conversation. Victoria's voice: "The public loves a spectacle. You say yes and the crowd will cheer. Alexis, she'll be the symbol of a bygone era." Nathan chuckled, "Exactly. And then you'll officially take control of Carter Legal Tech. No one left to stand in the way." Hearing his voice made my blood freeze. Next, I turned to Sarah, my trusted assistant and younger sister, who checked the internal email systems. Her eyes went wide. "Alexis, I know things have been tense, but are they really planning to spread rumors about infertility?" I nodded, offering a sad smile. "Sarah, I need you to archive every version of those drafts. Don't breathe a word of this to anyone, not even your closest colleague. This isn't only about a marriage. It's about the survival of the company." She bit her lip, then gave a firm nod. I trusted her. I taught her how to write her first lines of code when she joined. I kept digging. On Nathan's laptop, I found the media playbook, a post-gala crisis strategy. Everything had already been staged. Photos of me walking out with a devastated expression, tabloid headlines, followed immediately by a press release announcing a new partnership with Hale Ventures. That night, Nathan came home acting as if nothing had happened. Standing in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, he asked, "You think this suit looks okay? I want to make a strong impression with the press." I replied curtly, "Looks fine. You always know how to impress." He smiled, completely unaware that I had read the contract he used to betray me. In the following days, I quietly gathered more evidence. I planted a small camera in his office, hidden inside a picture frame. It captured him and Victoria signing a test copy of the agreement, both laughing like they had already won. Victoria, she has no clue. That innocent look. It'll make the audience even more excited. Nathan, Alexis never understood how the real world works. She buries herself in code. I watched the footage over and over. Each time the pain flared, but so did my determination. If they thought coding was all I knew, they were mistaken. One evening, my mother-in-law called. "Alexis, I hear big changes are coming at the company. You should prepare yourself. Don't cling, it'll only make you look worse." "Where did you hear that?" I asked. She let out a mocking laugh. "You think I don't know? Nathan's ready for the next step. You should know your place." I hung up. For the first time, her words didn't sting. They confirmed what I already knew. This entire family had sided with Nathan and Victoria. I settled into my home office, spread every document across the desk. Printed emails, contracts, recordings, videos. Looking at them, I knew I wasn't holding evidence of betrayal. I was holding the opportunity to rewrite the narrative. I whispered as if speaking to Grandma Elena. "I won't let anyone steal my work again. This time I'll rise." The desk lamp reflected off the thick stack of papers. Didn't feel like paper. It felt like a weapon. Not a gun. Not a knife. But the truth. And the truth, when timed right, can shatter even the most well-constructed lie. Linda didn't bother with pleasantries anymore. At the dinner following the gala, she looked me dead in the eye and said coldly, "You know, this family needs a real woman. Someone who can give Nathan a child. A legacy. You've let us down long enough." I set down my glass, hands slightly trembling but my eyes steady. "I never promised to exist solely to bear your grandchild. I built this company with Nathan, brick by brick." She smirked, her voice devoid of warmth. "Company? People see Nathan on magazine covers, not you. Who's going to believe this company exists because of your efforts?" Her words stabbed deep, but I didn't fire back. I knew the more I reacted, the more power she gained. Ryan, Nathan's younger brother, took a different route. He whispered behind my back, "Alexis is nothing but a shadow. Living off my brother's money. She's getting kicked out soon anyway." I heard those words through old friends, felt them in the awkward stares at social events. People began to view me as a woman on her way out, a failing wife about to lose everything. A former colleague murmured as we passed each other at a conference, "I'm really sorry for what you're going through, but people say you're being replaced. You should brace yourself." Those whispers pushed me into a lonely space. I once had friends, admirers of my work. But now, with a single well-crafted smear campaign, everyone turned their backs. The gala night was the peak. 300 people. Applause, laughter, cheers. They looked at me like I was a failure, a useless wife being phased out by her husband's boss. My phone buzzed non-stop. Photos of me sitting motionless at the table were all over social media, accompanied by nasty comments. "She deserves it. She clung to the CO seat through marriage, not merit. Look at her face. Pathetic." I took a sip of wine, letting the bitterness spread across my tongue. In that moment, I realized any emotional reaction, tears, shouting, walking out, would make me exactly what they wanted me to be. So I chose silence. My black gown brushed softly against the marble floor. The sound of my heels echoed, sharper than the whispers behind me. I didn't look back. I let them crave my collapse, and left them disappointed when all they saw was a straight spine and calm steps. The next morning, headlines exploded. A photo of Victoria proposing to Nathan landed on the front page. Beneath it, in bold, "Investment Queen Victoria Hale takes over Carter Legal Tech, CEO's former wife to step down for personal reasons." My name was in quotation marks, as if I were nothing but a footnote. My phone rang nonstop. Journalists, old friends, even admirers. All asking, "How do you feel?" As if I were a character in their favorite drama. I turned my phone off. I let them wonder. In the days that followed, I realized how truly isolated I was. Social friends kept their distance. Some who once held my hand at networking events now avoided me, afraid of siding with the loser. Even a few close staff members began avoiding eye contact at work. Linda came straight to my apartment, her voice filled with blame. You know, Nathan needs a stronger woman. Someone who can bear children, who knows how to hold a family together. You failed at both. I didn't fail. I refused to play by the rules your family made up. Linda paused for a moment but still turned to leave, muttering under her breath, "You'll understand soon enough." In my home office, the glow of night light casting shadows across every page spread on the desk. I thought of the emails, the contracts, the recordings I had quietly kept. All of them were there, like a flame waiting to ignite. It was in that isolation that I began to learn how to swallow pain and turn it into my sharpest weapon. Back at the penthouse in the heart of Boston, I closed the door gently, as if to preserve the silence for myself. No loud music, no blinding flashes from the gala night, darkness, filling every corner of the home. I took off my heels, placed them on the wooden floor, listening to the echo like the pulse that hadn't yet calmed down. I walked straight to the office and opened the wall-mounted safe. The numbers spun beneath my fingertips with precision, a muscle memory long ingrained. When the heavy door unlocked, I was face to face with the documents that had followed me through every stage. Company charter, original patents, investment account files. Every sheet, every number was proof of the truth. I was the one who built Carter Legal Tech. Not Nathan. Certainly not Victoria. On the first page of the company charter, my signature sat firmly at the owner's line. 70% ownership. Nathan had only 30%, thanks to the secret prenuptial agreement we signed before the wedding. A document known only to me, my lawyer, and my grandmother Elena. My grandmother Elena's seed capital was recorded under my name before the wedding, and the prenup reaffirmed that those shares stayed mine, hence the 70% in the charter. I ran my hand over that contract, hearing her words from long ago. Protect what you build. They may laugh at you, belittle you, but never forget, ownership is the sharpest sword. I still remembered those early days designing the company's security system. Everyone assumed it was to protect against outside threats, but in truth I'd built internal safeguards, structures that only my fingerprint and iris scan could access. No one could transfer shares, sign an acquisition, or withdraw capital without my approval. They thought I was the naive woman who only knew how to bury herself in code. But it was those lines of code, those security layers, that now held the keys to the empire they were trying to steal. I picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. On the other end, Sarah Brooks, my assistant since the early days of our startup, answered. Her voice was hoarse from staying up late but full of energy. "Ma'am? I saw the news. Are you okay?" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. "Sarah, you know better than anyone. Tonight nothing collapsed. Tonight was only the beginning." There was a pause, then I heard her inhale, shaky. "What do you need me to do?" "Tomorrow bring all system backups to the penthouse. Keep 2 copies of every internal transaction. One for our archive and one for the legal team. And Sarah, be careful. Don't let Nathan or Victoria know you're doing this." Her voice was solid. "Yes, ma'am. I won't let them touch a single line of data." After that, I called James Whitaker, my trusted attorney, the one who had drafted the prenup between me and Nathan. After only a few rings, his warm, grounded voice came through. "I suppose the day has finally come." I was surprised. "What do you mean?" "Alexis, I read the news. A woman like Victoria doesn't get involved without a plan. I always knew that prenup would be your shield when the time came. So what do you need from me?" I gripped the phone, my tone steady. "I want to initiate the reversal. I have documents proving Nathan and Victoria conspired to take me down. I need you to legalize every piece of evidence and prepare a lawsuit if they dare take another step." He answered without hesitation. "I'll be at the penthouse tomorrow morning. Don't let emotion sway you, Alexis. This isn't just a broken marriage. This is your legacy you're fighting for." After I hung up, I remained still in the spacious room, the city lights spilling in through the glass wall. I saw my reflection, wearing a black evening gown, eyes still holding that cold fire. And I understood. Tonight I was not the abandoned wife anymore. I was the one holding the power, waiting for the right moment to strike. I opened Nathan's folder. Inside were expense reports showing company credit cards used for business trips across Europe, which were, in fact, luxury vacations with Victoria. I had saved every receipt, every email, every boarding pass. They weren't financial proof. They were undeniable markers of betrayal. My hands had stopped trembling. Instead, each finger moved with calm certainty, sorting documents into folders, labeling them, preparing for the confrontation ahead. By midnight, I heard Nathan return. He reeked of alcohol and unfamiliar perfume. When he saw me still sitting in the office, his eyes flickered with suspicion. "You're still up?" I smiled faintly. My voice was light. "Yeah. Just organizing a few things." He had no idea that the things I was organizing were the threads tightening a noose around him and Victoria. Nathan sank into the sofa, turned on the TV, thinking tomorrow would be another normal morning. But I knew it would mark the beginning of a reversal they'd never see coming. I stepped out onto the balcony. The night air stung my skin. Below, Boston blazed like a stage that never turned its lights off. But this time I wasn't the one waiting in the wings while others dictated the script. I was rewriting it, line by line, with everything I had: intelligence, the law, and the kind of truth no one can erase. The next morning I woke up in the quiet penthouse. Outside, Boston was already in motion. But inside, a quake was waiting to erupt. As soon as I turned on my phone, the flood came in. Company accounts were locked and transactions froze, by a protective protocol I had insisted on years before. Bought us time to act. In less than 2 hours, I had over 40 missed calls. Nathan, investors, and unknown numbers lighting up my screen nonstop. Messages poured in, polite at first, then pleading, then furious. I didn't answer a single one. I knew they were panicking. My silence? That was the first strike. Meanwhile, the media exploded. Photos of Victoria kneeling, Nathan nodding, front page everywhere. But this time, the comments weren't admiration. Was this a PR stunt to seize Carter Legal Tech? One major outlet asked. Was the deal with Hale Ventures signed before the gala? A respected finance journal questioned. Those questions hit Victoria hard. Exactly as I'd expected, public sentiment turned. Investors grew anxious. By noon, the penthouse intercom rang. I checked the camera: Linda and Ryan. Linda wore an old evening dress, lips still painted deep red, but her eyes were tired. Ryan looked restless, glancing at his watch, stripped of his usual arrogance. I opened the door. Linda stepped in first, her voice trying to stay composed. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms, leaning against the sofa, my tone even. "I'm listening." Ryan jumped in. "You know what's happening. Investors are freaking out. Projects are being cancelled. The press is in a frenzy. This is the only chance to negotiate. We want a share of the company, to keep the family's place secure." I let out a short laugh. It wasn't amused. "A share? Ryan, where on earth did you get the idea that you had any ownership in Carter Legal Tech?" His face turned red. "You're Nathan's wife. He's my brother. We're family, so of course we have rights." I cut him off, pulled a folder from the desk drawer and placed it in front of them. "These are legal documents. The company charter, the prenuptial agreement, and proof of the initial investment. Nathan holds 30%. I hold 70%. There's not a single line that mentions Linda or Ryan. Neither of you have any legal rights here." Linda's face went pale, though she still tried to keep her tone haughty. "Alexis, are you really going to go up against this whole family? Did you forget we were once under the same roof?" "Under the same roof? Last night, when you stood in that crowd and applauded the public humiliation of me, you forgot all about that." The room fell silent. Ryan furrowed his brow, fists clenched. "If you don't compromise, things are going to get difficult. We can flip the media narrative. Go ahead and try. But remember, I have evidence. And once I go public, it won't be Nathan and Victoria who lose face. You two will be finished in this industry." Ryan went quiet, a flash of fear in his eyes. Linda placed a gentle hand on his arm, a silent signal to stop. She looked at me once more before slowly rising. "You've changed, Alexis. I don't even recognize you anymore." I answered calmly. "I haven't changed. It stopped letting people use me." After they left, I remained in the living room, the daylight streaming through the large windows. I could feel the isolation of yesterday transforming into control. They hadn't come to pity me, they came to beg. That said everything. My phone continued to buzz. Nathan called, then called again. I ignored them all until a message popped up. We need to talk now. You don't understand how complicated this is. No, he didn't understand. The entire financial system was in my hands and no one, not even Victoria, could breach the security layers I built. That afternoon, Sarah arrived with a thick stack of documents. She placed them on the table, her voice firm. Every record of Nathan's misconduct from the past 3 years has been backed up. Plane tickets, hotel bills, corporate credit card charges for personal use. Not a single line is missing. I looked at the folder and it felt like I was holding a web of ropes tightening around Nathan and Victoria. Well done, Sarah. Keep an extra backup. We'll need it in court. She nodded, her eyes shining with unwavering trust. Later that evening, I got word that Victoria had cancelled all her public appearances. The press reported she had no comment, but everyone knew the pressure was closing in. Investors were backing out, suspicious that the gala spectacle had been nothing but a failed power grab. Meanwhile, Nathan was drowning in more than 40 calls from partners. But every call ended with the same question: why can't we access the funds? Why has Carter Legal Tech stopped payments? And the only answer was me. The boardroom on the 32nd floor of Carter Legal Tech had never been this quiet. Floor-to-ceiling glass offered a panoramic view of Boston lit up below. But inside, every person seated around the 12-seat walnut table stared at one empty chair, the head seat. Nathan stood at the far end, dressed sharply in charcoal gray, smiling stiffly with clenched hands. Victoria stayed beside him, calm to the point of ice, her deep red dress standing out among a crowd of tense executives. They thought today was the day they'd seize control. I walked in last. The click of my heels on the stone floor echoed, subtle but enough to make the room hold its breath. No one spoke. No one dared. I walked to the head of the table, the chair left open for me. I pulled it out and sat down. This emergency meeting was called at my request. Go ahead, Nathan. I know you have a presentation. He looked at me, his chest rising and falling. Victoria tilted her head, the hint of a mocking smile in her eyes. Alexis, I don't think you understand the situation. The partnership with Hale Ventures is strategic. Most of the board is already convinced. We need to discuss a leadership transition. I interrupted, pulling a thick folder from my bag. I think everyone should see this first. I slid the documents down the table. Company charter, shareholder records, notarized prenup, and original patents. I currently hold 70% of Carter Legal Tech. All core technology patents are registered under my name as sole founder and intellectual property owner. The air shifted immediately. Several board members exchanged glances. Nathan turned pale. Victoria spoke, her voice sharp. Shareholding doesn't necessarily dictate executive authority unless that person also holds voting rights, internal security protocols, and access codes. Isn't that right? I continued, my eyes locked on hers, which only I have. I pressed a button on the remote. The screen at the head of the table lit up. A recording played, Nathan and Victoria's voices crystal clear. Stage 1. Publicly take her down at the gala. She's weak. Shame will make her walk away on her own. Once we control the media, the shares will drop. Easy buyout. No one spoke. I wasn't done. I played the next clip. Footage from a hidden camera in Nathan's office. The two of them signing a trial version of an internal transfer agreement, laughing like they had already won. Then I nodded toward the door. It opened. A middle-aged man walked in, followed by 2 cameramen. This is Richard Wallace, an independent investigative journalist invited to observe and record this meeting. For transparency. Victoria shot up. You can't do this. This is company property. Property of which I own the majority, I said clearly, and as controlling shareholder, I have the right to record for legal purposes. Nathan slammed his hand on the table. Alexis, you're going to destroy everything. You don't understand what this will cause. I looked him straight in the eye. Calm. Steady. Without a flicker. No. I'm taking back what was already mine. Across the table, the CFO flipped through the documents. His voice came hesitant but firm. I wasn't aware the partnership agreement was signed before the gala. That was never approved. Another voice joined in, head of product development. I thought it was a bold PR move. I didn't realize there was a scheme to seize control. Victoria gripped her purse strap, her glare circling the table. But she had lost the room. Nathan slumped like a man whose mask had been stripped. Sarah handed me a prepared resignation form. I slid it across to him. If you refuse to sign, I'll release all evidence publicly, including the embezzled company funds used to pay for your business trips with Victoria. He looked at me. Then around the room, his former kingdom. No one stood for him now. Heads bowed. Silence. Finally, he took the pen. Each signature was slow, reluctant, like a written confession. I turned to Victoria. Your contract with Carter Legal Tech is hereby terminated. And according to the original non-disclosure agreement, any acts of manipulation or internal abuse will be subject to legal action. Victoria lifted her chin, expression unreadable, but her knuckles turned white. She didn't say a word. She stood and walked out, defeated even before the verdict had been read. I watched them disappear behind the doors, then turned back to the board. Now we can start talking about the real future of this company. One built on integrity and talent, not manipulation and performance. I didn't leave the boardroom right after Nathan signed his resignation. I stayed, quietly sorting the documents on the table. Sarah helped collect the duplicates, her eyes following my every movement as if waiting for some emotional signal I no longer felt the need to give. And just as I gathered the notarized prenup, the one I'd once locked away thinking I'd never need it, Nathan returned. No more suits. No more aura of the Carter heir. He walked in like a man completely lost, his hair unkempt, his eyes swollen as if from crying or nights without sleep. One hand held a paper bag from the familiar coffee shop near our old office. The other was shoved deep into his pocket. You still like hot lattes with vanilla syrup, right? I didn't answer. The soft thud of the cup touching the table didn't move me. Nathan lowered his voice. I was wrong. I've been more wrong than I ever dared to admit. And if you can even once forgive me, or at least tell me what I can do to make it right. It's not that I can't forgive you. I don't want to hold on to anything that needs forgiving anymore. He swallowed hard. You know I can't live without you, Alexis. You know that. I've lost everything. The house, the car, my name. And you're the only part of my life that still meant something. Slowly, I pulled the wedding ring from the side pocket of my purse. The same ring he once picked out from Tiffany's, along with a promise that he would protect me from everything in this world. I placed it on the table, not like an object but like the final verdict on everything he had traded away. You never chose me, Nathan. Even when you had the chance, you chose power. Chose recognition. Chose the spotlight. I was never on that list. Never. He started to speak, but I raised a hand gently. Unnecessary. I don't need revenge. And I don't need to see you suffer to feel like I've won. I need one thing: separation. Nathan sank into the chair across from me, his elbows on the table, both hands cradling his head like he was trying to peel off the shell he'd worn for years. But there was no shell left, only a hollow man sitting in the ruins he made. I stood up. From now on, how you live is no longer my concern. But I hope, truly hope, you'll learn how to live without needing to hurt others to feel like you matter. I walked past him without looking back. No one followed. No voice called out. No more begging. Because what Nathan needed from me simply didn't exist anymore. A few days later, the news broke. Victoria's investors had pulled out en masse. Partly due to the leaked video, partly due to the financial report I filed with the Federal Audit Agency, the one she never thought anyone would dare submit. Victoria was removed from all executive duties for a minimum of 10 years. Every partnership agreement was terminated, including the ventures she had once used to build her own private economic network. As for Nathan, he disappeared from public view almost overnight. The penthouse in Back Bay was seized by the bank. The Maserati was towed away in the middle of the night. Invitations to charity galas and investment forums went silent. Some said he was living in a small rental apartment north of Cambridge, surviving on temporary support from his former law firm. A few mutual friends emailed to say he had started seeing a therapist, talking about the emptiness he no longer had anyone to share with. I had stopped tying my existence to people who always placed me last. 1 year later, I stood on the wooden steps of a small lakeside home near Union Lake, holding a cup of hot coffee and breathing in the soft chill of a Seattle autumn morning. I once dreamed of a home like this, not too big, not too fancy, but peaceful enough to hear the birds each morning and the soft ripple of water each night. Every detail inside the house had been chosen by me, not to impress, but to remind myself that I was living in a space I built with my own hands. Inside, a walnut desk sat by the glass window where sunlight filtered through branches hanging over the lake. On the screen was the draft interface design for our new platform, Veritas Labs. This platform was born from a simple question I carried with me through years in the hospital system. Why do the poorest people have to wait the longest for treatment? I can't fix the entire US healthcare system, but I can change how people access health information, how data is used to prevent illness rather than treat it too late. Veritas was born right here in the backyard of this cabin. 3 laptops, 1 leaning whiteboard, and my younger sister. The same one who once whispered to me in the middle of the night, "What do you want me to do?" No. She's the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, without question. I still remember our first team meeting here. Sarah settled cross-legged on the floor. 2 developers from Berkeley debated the feasibility of integrating AI to analyze clinical data in rural settings. Another teammate, Amina, an intern from Sudan, suggested adding early warning indicators for at-risk pregnancies. Me. I simply listened. I didn't have to prove my worth to rooms full of doubters anymore. Now I build the rooms, where young minds are trusted from the start. Each day moved with a quiet but steady rhythm. In the mornings, I worked with the development team. In the afternoons, I drove to the airport and flew to Palo Alto to teach a women-led startup class at Stanford. At first, I refused the invitation. I didn't think I was suited for teaching. But the elderly professor kept calling, saying, "Young women need to see someone like you, not in textbooks but in the flesh." The first time I walked into the lecture hall, the entire room went silent. They had already read my story in the papers. An article had gone viral under the title, "The Silent Architect, the Woman Who Redefined Revenge with Intelligence." I didn't speak about the past. I wrote a question on the whiteboard. What would happen if you didn't need to defeat others, but only needed to understand what you truly wanted to build? Perhaps it was the first time those freshmen heard a woman who didn't urge them to fight to be recognized, but instead told them, create something others cannot ignore. Veritas Labs grew quickly. Not through flashy fundraising rounds. We took another path. One community at a time, one healthcare network at a time. Our first contracts were with nonprofit organizations, then with community health clinics in Arizona, Louisiana, and even Alaska. No one called me Nathan Carter's ex-wife anymore. And no one mentioned that I was once called the woman who didn't know her place in the corporation. They called me by my name. Or sometimes by my new nickname, the Silent Architect. In the evening light falling over the lake, I felt a peace I had never been allowed before. Not because I had reclaimed everything that was taken, but because I was building something that had never existed. A life I chose from the foundation to every single brick. One quiet morning in Seattle, I woke earlier than usual. No alarm, no ringing phone, no urgent calls. Only the sound of leaves rustling outside the porch and a thin ray of sunlight slipping through the wooden window, so gentle it seemed hesitant to wake the house. I slipped on a gray knit cardigan, walked down to the kitchen and brewed coffee. The murmur of boiling water was a familiar rhythm, like the steady pace of the life I had rebuilt each day since leaving the old city, the old penthouse, the old man. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. I placed the cup on the table next to a deep blue gift box. That box had been there for more than a year. I had carried it from Boston to here, at first because I couldn't throw it away. Then because I forgot. And finally I kept it as a reminder that some things don't need to be opened to know what's inside. Inside was an Omega DeVille watch, brown leather strap, sapphire crystal face. I had ordered it to give Nathan when he was appointed CEO. I once wanted to engrave on the back, "Time means nothing if it's not spent with the right person." I never had the chance to engrave it. And now I didn't feel the need anymore. I looked at the box, touched the velvet surface lightly. It was cold. Not only because of the weather but because the memories inside carried no warmth anymore. I left the box untouched. Not out of regret but because there was nothing inside worth repeating. Back then, I used to sit alone in my office after meetings, waiting for my husband to finish those client dinners that stretched late into the night so we could eat together. Sometimes I waited in the kitchen, counting the hours until he came back. Sometimes I waited inside myself, persuading my heart that everything would be fine. I believed patience would pay off. I counted the hours until someone finally saw my work, devoted enough, humble enough. He would eventually see me. I used to drown in numbers, contracts, bank accounts, trying to understand how everything that was once ours slipped quietly into his alone. But now I had stepped away from all of that. No more struggle, no more response, no more waiting for anyone to return. I held on to nothing but peace. Not the forced peace of trying to look strong, but the peace of someone who had walked through storms and learned how to rebuild life on her own. I let go the way one puts an old letter in a drawer, not tearing, not burning, not rereading, leaving it there, a memory already framed. On the table beside the box lay a neatly clipped proposal. A new partnership from a research institute in Canada that wanted to use Veritas's platform to develop an early disease outbreak warning system in remote regions. I turned the first page and signed. Sarah walked into the kitchen, hair tousled, voice still sleepy. "Sis, are you going to Stanford today?" I shook my head, took a sip of coffee. "No. Today I want to stay home. I have an appointment with myself." Sarah smiled and took the seat across from me. She noticed the box but said nothing. Some things don't need explanation, because those who remain always know best what has passed. Sunlight spilled across the table, touching the faded corner of the deep blue box. I didn't put it away. I didn't throw it out. Just like me at that moment. Not denying what had happened but not letting it weigh me down anymore. I leaned back in the chair, eyes drifting toward the lake. The trees along the shore were turning golden. Another season was arriving. And for the first time in years, I stopped counting days by what was undone or what was lost, and I counted days by mornings with soft sunlight in the kitchen, by the scent of coffee, by the peaceful gaze of my sister. I poured another cup of coffee and set it by the slightly open window. The morning light fell across the wooden table, shining on the box still unopened, now only a part of old memories resting there, quiet but no longer heavy. Life doesn't always need loud retaliation, doesn't need someone to collapse in front of us to feel like justice. Perhaps the most beautiful revenge is living true to our own values, and living well. I know each listener will feel differently. Some will ask, why not strike harder? Some will smile, seeing me choose to move forward instead of standing in the mire. But what about you? If you've ever been in a similar place, dismissed, pushed out of your own life, forced to rebuild from ruins, what choice would you make to continue? Share your thoughts below. I always read every comment because the most honest stories are not written in the ending, but in the hearts that resonate. And if you want to keep following these everyday yet extraordinary stories, about courageous women, about silent confrontations, and about rising when no one is watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll meet again in another story. Perhaps mine, or perhaps yours.